what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with the midweek update in the world of cannabis. So before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. Today we start with more great news for the industry as the state-led growth story continues, as Connecticut finally launches their adult use program many months after officially legalizing, much like some of the other states on the East Coast. But the good news is they're finally launching and finally getting sales going. So thank you, John Craven, for sharing this as of January 9th on Monday, happening now. Governor Ned Lamont announcing that 43,754 cannabis convictions have been erased under the cannabis legalization law. And so this is the main reason why we want to reform cannabis laws, is to get people out of jail or to, give them their lives back, because no one's life should be ruined by cannabis being illegal, obviously. But of course, the other benefit is the retail sales, the tax revenue, the jobs, all of the good things it's going to bring, the decrease in opioid overdoses as well. Many good things come from cannabis reform. And so as of yesterday, retail sales begin at 9 dispensaries tomorrow. So just happy to share more resources down here, Clean Slate Connecticut, if you wanted to find out more about the cannabis convictions. But we're going to move along and just highlight some of the MSOs that have a footprint in Connecticut and that will benefit from them finally launching their legal adult use program to hopefully combat and eliminate over time the illicit market. And so with that, we've got Verano. Moments like this never get old. They certainly do not get old. We love to see lineups around corners as people want to vote with their dollars and buy legal cannabis if they have access. It's been proven by many states, and the dominoes continue to fall. So Verano, one of the MSOs with a footprint. We've also got Green Thumb Industries. This is their CEO, Ben Kovler. Connecticut, day one, teamwork makes the dream work. So another one of the MSOs trying to benefit from being in Connecticut early and capitalize on some new sales from this launch. And so with that, I think the third MSO is Curaleaf. Curaleaf Holdings gets hybrid producer license in Connecticut to supply adult use markets. So I'll put the link below if you're interested in reading more about this Curaleaf press release as well. But kudos to these MSOs for sticking to their guns and finally being rewarded despite such difficult market conditions that essentially everyone is going through, not just the cannabis industry right now. Although, of course, the cannabis industry has both hands tied behind their backs, and they're still managing to succeed. But with that, just wanted to share some more information on Connecticut. If you're interested, Pink Horse Capital. Tomorrow is opening day in Connecticut, our home state for adult use cannabis. 9 dispensaries will be open at 10 a.m., which includes some from Green Thumb Industries, Verano, Acreage Holdings, and I do believe Curaleaf. I'm not exactly sure if they've been approved yet, but from the press release, it seems like they've got 2 that are open. And so anyways, these are the dispensaries, the 9 of them so far, just if you're interested, and where they are located across the state. And so the last bit of news on Connecticut, just while it's fresh, MJBizDaily reporting, Connecticut sets January 10th launch for rec cannabis sales. And so that was yesterday. Bit more information here if you wanted to pause to read as well. They're saying the 7 dispensaries, and then from what we're hearing, there's 9. I think those might have been Curaleaf that was approved for the hybrid. And so I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments, but more here if you just wanted to pause to read. And so that is it for Connecticut. Hopefully another market that sees success sooner than later. And so with that, Arkansas Times sharing medical cannabis sales set another record in 2022, which we love to hear. Seems to be a trend every January. Medical cannabis sales in Arkansas set a record in 2022. And so more on that. Medical cannabis patients in Arkansas spent $276.3 million at the state's 38 dispensaries to obtain 50,547 pounds of cannabis. And this was the largest year for sales since the industry launched in 2019. Of course, every year becomes the largest as more patients switch to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative, and it gets easier for them to get access to it. And it surpassed the previous record of $264.9 million in 2021. And so obviously, the more patients you can give access to and help them potentially switch off opioids, the sooner you're going to drive more sales, and hopefully the sooner you might see the benefits of adult use and legalizing for rec as well. But so more here if you wanted to pause to read about Arkansas, but love to see the good progress coming out of states that have the balls to reform early. And with that, Todd Harrison shares Arizona recreational cannabis sales hit new record as well, which we love to hear. Medical sales slip again as more people are likely turning to the rec market because they know what cannabis they need for whatever medicinal ailments they have, but highlighting $85 million in adult use sales, and this is a record in October, so expect the November sales to go down a little bit as they do, but then we're going to see a big boost in December. Most likely, we'll have to wait and see, but that's typically what we see out of other markets. And so this comes from an azmirror.com article. Not going to go through the whole thing, but we'll put it down there if you wanted to check it out. Of course, you can grab it So just wanted to thank Champsy for sharing this one. When in doubt, zoom out, which is always great advice, but obviously easier said than done to practice. And while I did share on Sunday that Illinois set another record in December for recreational cannabis sales, bringing that up to 143 million, I forgot to mention that since day one, when they legalized and launched their program in January 2020, they've now managed to do 3.6 billion in total sales with just 185 dispensaries. So nonetheless, very impressive of Illinois, and we're expecting 110 new dispensaries to hopefully be approved and launched within the next few months, early 2023. That's what we're told. So that should hopefully only drive sales in the right direction, which we love to see. But again, just to highlight 2020, 185 dispensaries bring in 669 million. 2021, same 185 doing 1.3 billion, and then 2022, same 185 dispensaries doing 1.5. And so now, hopefully, with these next 110 coming in the next few months, that should definitely help drive sales in Illinois. Especially other markets launching their programs will help drive sales across the country as well. But again, this industry is not going anywhere. It's too big. It's just a matter of pushing through and surviving until we get that next catalyst. And so new cannabis ventures, American cannabis sales sink in November. To be expected, as obviously coming down from the summer high. That's usually what we see until December when we see another record month. And so I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but just going to highlight and pause so that you can read about each market. Eastern markets, BDSA provides coverage for Florida, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. In November, year-over-year growth ranged from negative 13.1 in Maryland. Again, one of the slower states that's been medical only for a long time, but they did legalize on the ballot in November of 2022. And so hopefully they can legalize and launch their program sooner than later, but I believe they're going with a more social equity focused approach as opposed to Missouri, who will likely launch much sooner if they don't focus on that. 37.4% in Florida. Note that Florida, Maryland, and Pennsylvania are medical only markets though. Maryland is introducing adult use soon, and that could be a Chuck Schumer soon. We don't know yet. And so not to get ahead of myself, the link will be down below if you wanted to grab the whole thing and read yourself, but this is for Florida, highlighting their growth up until the end of November 2022. So you can pause to read. Scroll down to Illinois, of course, just covered that, so not going to spend much time on that. Maryland, the slumping Maryland medical market, you can pause to read. This is for to the end of November as well. Massachusetts, till the end of November as well, you can pause to read. And then Michigan, till the end of November, pause to read. And then Pennsylvania as well. And so that is it, I believe, for the eastern markets. And then Western markets, BDSA provides coverage for Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, and Oregon. In November, year-over-year growth ranged from negative 23.8% in Nevada, yikes, that market's having a tough time, to negative 2.5% in Arizona compared to a year ago. And so keep in mind, this is November. December, these numbers are going to look a lot better, but it is what it is. So Arizona, you can pause to read up until the end of November 2022. California, you can pause to read. And of course, November, December, so it's like Q4, Q1, this is typically when we see Croptober. This is the illegal cannabis being grown in California, then shipped across the country to compete with high legal cannabis prices. That unfortunately does come around this time of year, and so that's likely a big factor as well. Colorado, up until the end of November, you can pause to read. And then we've got Nevada, till the end of November 2022, you can pause to read. And then Oregon. Pause to. And while sales did slump in November, I will certainly update you as soon as we get the December sales, just to highlight the jump that we got back up the following month. But main thing to highlight is that Americans are voting with their dollars for legal cannabis. And I have no doubt that a majority, if they had access to legal cannabis, they would want to buy it that way, as opposed to going to the illicit market, because they want to know what they're consuming and they want to consume quality product. And so carrying on, recreational cannabis sales doubled in Maine. So love to see as more states setting records. Legal sales launched in 2020. Adult use cannabis sales soared last year in Maine, nearly doubling the total for 2021, as local news outlet Masthead, Maine, citing data that was released by the Maine Office of Cannabis Policy, reports that the state's licensed adult use retailers reported nearly 2.5 million sale transactions, totaling 158.9 million in 2022, which was up a hefty amount from 82 million of sales generated the prior year. So it seems like more and more people in Maine are growing a liking to cannabis, or at least they're seeing the benefits of maybe switching from alcohol to it. A lot of possible reasons, but you can pause to read more or grab the link below if you want to learn more about what's going on in the Maine market. But again, another market seeing the benefits of ending cannabis prohibition. So this one comes out of Cleveland, Ohio, as Ohio's medical cannabis market set to more than double in 2023. Efforts continue to legalize for rec. And so we don't have an update yet how hard they're going to push, but they are aiming to try and legalize for adult use in 2023, which is good because Ohio has had a successful medical program for a while. The sooner they can get on board with recreational cannabis and launching an adult use market, obviously the better. So a little bit from this, the number of Ohioans using medical cannabis legally through the state regulated marketplace jumped 20% in the last year. Another great stat that we love to see is more people are switching to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative simply because they have access to it. And that amounts to 163,000 registered patients actively buying cannabis, or about 30,000 more people compared to the start of 2021, according to data from the Ohio Medical Cannabis Control Program. And so obviously, if you could advertise cannabis as a medicine, much like you could advertise Big Pharma, my God, you could probably recruit so many more people. Fortunately, that's not usually the case. We've got to do it the old-fashioned way through word of mouth, but nonetheless, heading in the right direction. In addition, more than 70 provisional dispensary licenses were awarded in May, more than doubling the number of dispensaries across the state. So obviously that will open up more access points, making it easier for people to get access to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative. And then, so lastly, just wanted to highlight, will recreational cannabis be legalized in 2023? It's not a question of if cannabis will be legalized for all adults. It's a question of how it will be legalized, according to attorney Tom Herron explained. But essentially, so far what we know definitively that I can share, a tax of 10% that Herron told News 5 can generate anywhere around $400 million in revenue from the state each year. Yeah, no shit, you want that ASAP. And then the coalition presented an initiative to lawmakers in Columbus, and if the legislature doesn't pass its bill by the spring, which seems to be the first plan, Herron said plans are in place to submit enough signatures to put the idea on the ballot for voters in November. And so, if we don't get something by the spring, legislatively in Ohio, likely we will see something on the ballot in November. So, things are heading in the right direction there. More on this article below if you wanted to check it out. And so with that, just on to some MSOs, found some interesting snippets worth sharing. So Christopher Norman, thanks for sharing this. It's apparently Verano's second adult use dispensary likely to start in February in Connecticut, the recently launched market. So obviously that'll give them a boost having two dispensaries as opposed to one. But investor presentation from Verano, I suppose, has a slide indicating Verano's CT cultivation will be up to 210,000 square feet. And so again, if you're interested in Verano, I would recommend then just grabbing the article and reading through it. Not going to focus too much time, but just trying to find interesting snippets that might provide a little bit of a boost to one company and that you can look through and, you know, might help you making some investment decisions going forward. But again, none of this is advice, just trying to share what I think is important, is somewhat relevant or useful. And so this one from Andrew George. Thank you, Andrew George, for sharing this one. So I believe this is in reference to the Cresco and Columbia Care merger, so they'd be identified as 7.21B3. The transaction that they're planning to go through needs to close by the outside date defined in the agreement as March 31st, 2023. And so that's less than 2 months from today. Any party has the right to extend up to an additional 90 days if S6.23 has not been satisfied or waived. So if some part of it has not been satisfied or waived. And so from my understanding, what's outstanding and has to close is the regulatory approval for the Ohio, Maryland, and Florida licenses. And so to explain this for the layman, thank you, Andrew George, for sharing this. Mainly just an update on the progress of the merger between Cresco and Columbia Care. But in layman's terms, some investors are doubting the transaction will close by March 31st, 2023. We don't know, though. It's speculation to say whether it will or won't. We just have to wait and see. But now that we have a bit of a timeline and a date, so if they don't close by March 31st, 2023, because of not satisfying this section, then they can exercise the right to extend the closing date for another 90 days. So potentially we can have an answer by the end of March 31st, 2023. If not, we might have to wait another 90 days, but I mean, at this point, I don't really care. I just would really like the merger to go through. And if it doesn't go through, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but obviously I think it'd be more beneficial so that Cresco and the new entity that has Columbia Care will have an easier time competing with the other big tier 1 MSOs. And so with that, Air Wellness announces opening of 2 new retail locations in Florida. And I should say that I'm a Cresco Lab shareholder. That's mainly why I hold that view. That's just my opinion, not advice as well, but just wanted to say that for cover my butt. But on to Air Wellness as they announce opening of 2 new retail locations in Florida. So from my understanding, this brings their number of locations in Florida from 56 dispensaries to 58. So good on Air Wellness trying to get into that very competitive state early, establish a footprint while, you know, the medical market is hot, but really take advantage of that adult use market once that flip is switched. And so more information just about the markets down here and about Air Wellness if you wanted to read it. Link, of course, will be below. And as an Air shareholder, I do like to see them doubling down and expanding their footprint in markets that not only matter now, but are especially going to matter in the long run. And I'm mostly looking at Florida and New Jersey. But main point being is that, well, Air Wellness is a tier 2 MSO and not a tier 1, so they're not as cash flush or cash stable. With their footprint and leverage, I have no doubt that they'd be able to eventually raise more money and that they'll be able to make it through these tough times. Now, I have no idea. That's just my opinion. Who the fuck really knows? But just wanted to share that as well. Link below. But that's it for MSOs. And so with that, a few more state stories as Todd Harrison shares. Wisconsin governor is ready to sign a GOP-led medical cannabis bill if it's not flawed with excessive restrictions. Well, hopefully the governor can give some insights and help the lawmakers craft a bill that he would pass. I've supported medicinal cannabis since I've been governor. Yeah, you've talked a lot, but you haven't done shit. So hopefully, I think it's Tony Evers. Hopefully he will actually, you know, help push this along. That way he can actually sign something, but obviously it's not up to him. It's up to his lawmakers to write something. So we'll update if we get something out of Wisconsin. Of course, that article will be below if you wanted to read more. But some good news out of Missouri. 2 stories actually. Todd Harrison shares legalization means Missouri cannabis companies can deduct business expenses from state taxes officials. And so I forget which MSOs are in Missouri. I think it might really only be Curaleaf, maybe Verano, maybe Green Thumb as well. But passage of Amendment 3 clarified the issue. Normal business deductions will be allowed for cannabis-related businesses. So from my understanding, it seems like in Missouri, you'd be able to deduct 280E, whereas across the country, you still can't because of the federal overhang. And so maybe this could lead to a lawsuit. You can challenge that. I have no idea. That would be great, but just happy to share that Missouri is not waiting and making some sensible changes to their policy. Some that other states could follow from. But with that, Tom Engel shares Missouri regulators have also posted sample forms for people who want to apply to grow their own cannabis at home. They will begin accepting applications by February 6th. So good job, Missouri, and thank you, Missouri regulators, for acknowledging something we should have acknowledged a long time ago. Cannabis is a plant, and all Americans, people around the world, should have the freedom to grow it in their garden, much like they grow tomatoes or any other vegetables. And so one step in the right direction as well. Another one from High Times. I've actually shared this before in my last video, but essentially just seeing that it's being pushed in the mainstreams. I know High Times is not, it's not Fox or MSNBC, but good to see this out there as researchers at San Diego State University and Bentley University explored the impacts of recreational cannabis on employment, wages, and labor markets. And so, of course, the sooner you launch and the more dispensaries you approve, that creates employment, wages, and obviously can bring in more tax revenue, right? So you see the benefits of doing this. This story would highlight it. Of course, I'll put this analysis in the link in the description, but just wanted to make this point again as I move over to the fact that there's only one rec store that's been approved legally in New York, and already Housing Works Cannabis Co. receives bad Google reviews, because why would anyone want to pay $100 for 3.5 grams when you can probably pay $100 and get an ounce off of the street from these illegal retailers that New York has said that they're going to, clamp down on, but haven't really seemed to be doing that. And so Stoners slap Housing Works dispensary with a bad review. No shit. So far, it's 3 out of 5 rating from 29 Google reviews. But imagine, you got one retail store. No doubt it's going to be flogged down by bad reviews if you only open one store and you don't provide equal opportunity for everyone to get legal cannabis like you said you would a year and a half ago when you legalized. And so just highlighting how much of a shit show New York has become. Hopefully they can improve, but that's where they sit today. And so with that, MJBizDaily shares adult use cannabis is very close to being legalized in the U.S. Virgin Islands. How close? Well, obviously politics gets in the way, and I will update you once something gets done, but just wanted to share this as more and more places are turning to common sense, and that's something that we do like to see. And so with that, another study highlighting what we've already known for a long time, but should give us enough of a push to deschedule cannabis finally. Marijuana Moment reports pain patients are switching to medicinal cannabis instead of opioids. American Medical Association study shows. This could be huge. Obviously, the more studies we get out of the AMA, the better, as long as they're not captured by people with an ideology. But about 1 in 3 chronic pain patients report using cannabis as a treatment option now, and most of that group has used cannabis as a substitute for other pain medications. That's huge, as a substitute, including opioids, a new study published by the American Medical Association found. The new paper from researchers at the University of Michigan and Johns Hopkins University builds on the growing body of scientific literature indicating that cannabinoids can serve as effective pain management tools for some people as a substitute for certain pharmaceuticals. We've known this for a long time, and obviously the sooner we deschedule, the sooner we can start looking for the actual medical benefits of cannabinoids versus what we've done in the past looking for harms, and we haven't been able to find any. Obviously, the sooner we can do that, the better. I think it's fair to say that all of us would want to see cannabis descheduled within our lifetimes, because certainly that's not too much to ask, and obviously if they did it as soon as possible, it would be more beneficial for everyone, especially around the globe. The good news is that this is the kind of data that should hopefully help push our cause forward, as the cross-sectional study published last week in the Journal of the American Medical Association, Substance Use and Addiction, involved data from 1,724 adults, 18 and older, living in 36 states, plus Washington, D.C. from March to April 2022. The analysis was based on data from the National Opinion Research Center Amerispeak panel. And so more than half of adults who use cannabis to manage their chronic pain reported that use of cannabis led them to decrease the use of prescription opioid, prescription non-opioid, and over-the-counter pain medication. So more than half using cannabis reduced other medication, and less than 1% reported that the use of cannabis actually caused them to increase their other medication. That's a massive finding, the authors wrote in the research paper, which received federal funding through the National Institute on Drug Abuse. And it'd be great if we could see some, federal push to actually deschedule and, act on these sort of findings. Obviously, they want to find more findings to go along with their previous findings, but the high degree of substitution of cannabis with both opioid and non-opioid treatment emphasizes the importance of research to clarify the effectiveness and potential adverse consequences of cannabis. It says, so deschedule so we can fucking get this started. As our results suggest that state cannabis laws have enabled access to cannabis as an analgesic treatment despite knowledge gaps in use as a medical treatment for pain. And unfortunately, these knowledge gaps only seem to exist in the heads of professionals that have leadership positions that refuse to look at the new data and are paid to keep the same views and the status quo alive. Unfortunately, that seems to be the main roadblock, but the data doesn't lie, and we know cannabis as a medicine. So the good news, so it is no wonder that those in legal access to it are substituting cannabis in lieu of other, potentially less effective and more harmful substances. He said, as legal access continues to expand, one would expect the cannabis substitution effect to grow even more pronounced in the future, as it's obviously beneficial that where cannabis is legalized, you see a 25% decrease in opioid overdoses. All of this is beneficial to the American people. The only ones that won't acknowledge it seem to be the politicians, sadly, and our policymakers that many people vote in, unfortunately. And so at least we know, and the reality is that descheduling cannabis would only change the status quo for the better, no doubt. And that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great week, everybody.